Hello, and welcome to tonight's show. My name is Mickey Spear. I am an author, musician, and talk show host of The Healing Half. I appreciate all of you guys bearing with us as we got a little bit of tech issues today, but hopefully you're able to hear this and listen to this live. If you are listening, if you don't mind letting me know that you are here in the comments section, just give us a hello, where you're calling in from. That would be fantastic. That way I know it's streaming properly and I don't have to refresh this whole page over again. But if we do, that's okay. We roll with the punches on the show, and that is totally 100% fine. So in case we haven't met before, my name is Mickey Spear. I am a grief author, musician, and talk show host. I lost my mom to cancer when I was 13 years old, and I spent the better part of a decade pretending I was fine and trying to convince the world around me that I was fine too. Spoiler alert, that didn't work very well. And eventually I had to come to the realization that you have to walk through your hard emotions in order to heal from them. You can't just run forever. And not only did I learn that, but in the midst of my mom passing away, I saw a lot of people around me and my family who were unsure of how to help us in our pain. And so I wanted to create a show that addressed both of those groups. How do we heal our own wounds? And how do we learn how to help other people? Because I can't tell you the amount of times in my own life, as well as I've heard people tell me that they have felt awkward not knowing what to say. And man, oh man, is tonight's topic of miscarriage one of those situations where even though it is so common, and I'm going to let my wonderful guest talk all about that. I don't need to go into that yet. But even though it is so common, so many people are so awkward about it and they don't know what to say and they certainly don't know how to help. So tonight we are going to be tackling the misconceptions of miscarriage, how we can help out, and of course, if you yourself are hurting and this is resonating with you, give you a couple resources that you can take along your way. So let us know that you're watching in the comments. And before we jump right in, last little thing for you guys. If you want to buy my new journal, All Weather Welcome Wholesale, it's a cute little thing. It's good for all ages. And that's what I kind of love about it, is it encourages kind of everybody to lean into their emotions regardless of what they're feeling that day. That's kind of the thesis of this show. So for right now, I'm doing this friends and family discount where I am not making a dime. I just wanted to give it away to folks. And it's $5.38 on Amazon Prime. So hopefully that's cheaper than most journals you buy out in the world. So if you want, just message me and I will get you that link. And then pretty soon we're going to start pushing it elsewhere and then the price will go up. So if you want it wholesale, just send me a message after the show and I will happily get you that link so you can take full advantage of it. All right, you guys, we are not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right on in. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, Alexia Erickson.
Hi.
Hi, it is so good to have you here. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So do you mind introducing yourself and perhaps going into your story?
Yeah, so I'm Alexia. I'm a stay-at-home mom to two toddlers. And last year, I found out that I miscarried our third child. And so that happened in October. I went in for just like a routine, normal appointment. It was supposed to be my 18-week appointment. And I found out that I had what's called a missed miscarriage, which means that the baby had died before and my body had showed no signs of it. So the baby had died about 3 weeks before. He started doing the ultrasound and I wasn't expecting it at all. So even as he was kind of explaining it to me, I was just like, oh, so something's kind of like wrong, but the baby is still alive, you know? And so he was telling me that he wasn't seeing any movement, that there wasn't any heartbeat. And then I asked him the next question. I was like, what do I do next? What am I supposed to do? So then a few days later, I had to go to the labor and delivery floor of the hospital, and I was induced, and I had a vaginal delivery and delivered him. Then we spent a few hours with him and then went back home.
Wow. Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I am so sorry for your loss. There's a lot to even unpack there just
Yeah.
within your quick story there. So the first question I have is when you were going into your appointment, you kind of mentioned you just had no you weren't expecting that information. Is that a thing you hear commonly among your community? And we'll get to your Instagram in a bit. How do people deal with that blindsidedness?
Yeah, so I've done a few polls kind of at different stages of the community growing, and it seems like it's always around 50-50 with
Okay.
people who knew something was off and kind of knew it was coming, or people who were totally blindsided. And I was in the camp where I was totally blindsided because
Mm.
I'd had two healthy pregnancies, two healthy babies. I thought that my body could do it no problem, and so to have it happen was really confusing to me. We never found an answer for it. It was just, and we didn't do any genetic testing. Typically, they won't do any testing until it's your third loss, which is a whole thing in itself because isn't one enough? But um, yeah, so we never found out why. So I didn't see it coming at all. And even as I was
Mm.
looking at the screen, and I've had lots of ultrasounds, I know what an 18-week baby should look like. And I was looking at more like a 14, 15-week baby. I was just in denial. I didn't see it coming at all.
Mm. I am so sorry to hear that. So after you got this news, can you kind of walk us through taking this to your friends and family and how that went?
Yeah, so since I was 18 weeks, we had already announced on social media. Everyone in our lives knew I was showing a little bit. So we kind of had no choice but to tell everyone. Um, I definitely crawled in a hole for a little bit and I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't even share the news with my own family. My husband was the one who like either texted them or called them and told them because I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't talk about it
Mm.
yet. And but we were met with a lot of support, both my husband's family and my family. My parents flew out like a week or two. I don't know, that timeline gets a little bit confusing, but like a week or two after the miscarriage, to be here and kind of help out with the kids and everything.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, we were kind of forced by the fact that we'd already announced to then tell everyone. Um, and we had lots of people like get food delivered to our house and
Oh.
send gifts, and our front porch was just constantly covered in like flowers and cookies and everything, like all the time for like a week. So it was nice that everyone cared so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's so fantastic to hear, and that's good for us to remember that that's helpful. Like that's this kind of stuff that we should be doing. And you kind of mentioned that you crawled into a hole. Can you maybe give us a little insight on what's running through your mind at that point?
Yeah, I felt a lot of shame. There's a lot of shame that comes with miscarriage, and
Mm.
there's a lot of shame that comes with a missed miscarriage. Because my question I kept asking myself is, how did I not know? Like, how did I not realize something was off? Like, was I paying that little attention to this baby, that I didn't notice something was off? So I felt really, really ashamed. I didn't want to explain myself. I felt like people were going to interrogate me, like, how could you not know? Or
Mm.
how did this happen? What did you do? Even though no one was going to do that. But that was my fear because I felt so ashamed. So people would come and knock on the door and I wouldn't answer, and I didn't answer phone calls. I didn't answer texts. If it was someone who I felt like we needed to get back to, I would just tell my husband, to get back to them. And people would come knock on the door. My So that weekend was also my birthday.
Oh,
so so there was like people had already like scheduled gifts or things like that, and then they would text me and they're like, I'm so sorry I sent you a happy birthday card and that seems insensitive now. So it was a lot. um so yeah, I didn't talk to anyone really for
mm.
about a week. My sisters came up, So I found out on a Friday. Sorry, this is like all over the place. I found out on a Friday, and then my birthday was on Sunday. And then I was induced on Tuesday, I think.
Oh, wow.
So my sisters came up on Sunday and people were knocking on the door and stuff, and I would just send them. And I was like, just tell them I'm taking a nap or something. I don't want to talk to anybody.
You know what? We got to set boundaries where we can. And I love that you let those people in and let them set those boundaries for you.
Yeah.
And, one question that just came to my mind, and I so appreciate you kind of just fielding all these random questions. But I'm just so fascinated by this. And I want to make sure we talk about this because it is so prevalent. I think I heard 1 in 4 pregnancies, if that's the stat. So in between finding out and having to give delivery, you're still carrying your son. What was that? Like, can you walk through like that, what that felt like?
Yeah. I hated that whole weekend. It's hard to enjoy anything when like I have a dead baby inside of me. That was really hard, and especially because it was my birthday. And so my husband's like, "Well, let's do cake." And I'm like, "I can't have a birthday cake. There's a dead baby inside of me." And
Hmm.
so I immediately, like, as soon as I found out, I just started eating. I couldn't stop eating for like that entire weekend. And I felt so guilty that I was eating. I was like, I shouldn't be enjoying food because I felt like I had like killed a baby, right? Like I had done
Mm.
something wrong. Um, and I was like, I shouldn't be enjoying food right now. I shouldn't be enjoying this. I shouldn't be joking about anything. It's a weird place to be in that like in between. And so I just wanted to get to the the delivery. Um, my doctor had given us two options. One is a D&E, which is like a D&C, if you've heard of that. It's where they go in and they surgically, remove the baby and all of the tissue and everything. So he gave me that option or an induction. And I initially wanted to do the D&E. I just wanted to be, because you're put out for that. And it's just, they said it would take like 20 minutes or something, and then I could just leave. Um, and that wasn't going to be able to happen until like later in the week.
Oh
And then the
man.
induction could happen sooner. And then because of a few other reasons, we ended up just going for the induction because I could not live any longer in that in between.
Yeah. And can you walk us through going back to the delivery? You've had 2 kids, so you're kind of familiar with the delivery room, and obviously a very different experience. Can you kind of walk us through what that's like and perhaps what we can keep in mind as we talk to other mothers who have had to go through similar things? Because I know that's kind of a traumatic journey. Of course, all of it's traumatic, but especially like going into that hospital delivery room.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that the check-in process at the hospital, even just that, because I'd done that twice before, that was so hard to do because you're also standing next to other women who are very pregnant and they're there to deliver their alive, healthy babies. And I'm standing there with like my tiny little, barely there bump. And so, we had to walk in, we had to do one COVID screening, then another one. And each person would ask me, they're like, "Are you just visiting?" And I was like, "No, I'm here for an induction." And they would like look down at my belly and they're like, "Okay." And I was like, "I miscarried. That's why I'm here." And of course, I was, like crying through all of this because it was so fresh. Um, so I had to explain myself to like three different people just to get up there.
Wow.
And then yeah, walking up and like, you go up the elevator and then your nurse is waiting for you and you take the walk down to your room. And it was just, yeah, the other times I'd done that, I'd had a big belly. I knew that I was going to meet my baby. It was going to be worth it. Um, and it was just lots of little things like getting hooked up to like the blood pressure cuff and like the beeping that makes. Like I hadn't forgotten that beeping from my other babies. And so hearing that and knowing that the end result was going to be so different was really hard. Um, yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. I apologize that we have to go back and kind of relive
No.
that. So I so appreciate that. And then after you and I guess is the terminology after you delivered, is that the proper way of
That's
saying it?
that's what I normally say. Yeah. Just
Okay.
after. Yeah.
If I ever say anything wrong, like just catch me, be like, we
Okay.
don't say that. So, because I want to learn the right phrasing. So, you kind of mentioned earlier, like after you delivered, you were able to have some time, with your baby. That, of course, just like for like the average cat who hasn't been through this experience, that's kind of a makes you pause and stand back. Can you maybe walk us through that and maybe incite like what it was like and why people do that?
Yeah, so it definitely, I feel like it gave me some closure to be able to see and to hold his body. Had I gotten the D&E procedure, I wouldn't have been able to do that. He would have been gone by the time I woke up. Um, it was really hard. It's hard to go through the labor process because, like I said, normally you're going through all of this and knowing I get to see my baby at the end of this. I'm so excited. And instead, it was like, I'm going through all of this, and then it means that this is over.
Mm.
There was nothing exciting coming at the end. So I was looking forward to the end of labor just to be done with it because it was exhausting. Um, I was surprised by how many decisions we had to make once he had arrived. I remember filling out various forms. I don't remember what all of them were for. We were just kind of filling them out. But we had to make decisions about like which funeral home to go with because we did have him cremated, um, and he was placed in a plot with other stillborn babies. They're just like all in there together, and I love the
Mm.
idea of that. We have a place to go visit him, and it just feels good that he's not alone. Um, so, but I was also like, he looked like a total baby. You know, he was like 14, 15 weeks developed. His measurements were kind of all over the place because I don't really know what happened in there. But he has long, skinny arms and long fingers and little tiny, tiny, tiny feet. They said that they looked like Tic Tacs, like they were just so tiny. And that's one of those things that like you learn to joke about, and
Yep.
it's it might sound kind of morbid, but like it is what it is. So, and getting to see his little face. He wasn't developed enough, obviously, that we could see like, oh, he looks like one of us or whatever, but he looked totally like a baby. You could see the little eyelids and the little ears and all of
Mm.
that. And so they did. There's an organization called Share Parents. I think that they're across the U.S., but they have one in Utah. And so they have a volunteer come who wraps your baby up all nicely and kind of poses them, and then does little like ink handprints and footprints just like you would
Mm.
get for a baby you were bringing home. So they're all smudged and they didn't really work that well because his hands were so tiny, but it's still nice to have them.
Yeah. Wow, I'm like crying over here. That's so beautiful, and I'm so sorry that you had to do that, but that's so beautiful that you were able to have that, like you said, that closure
Yeah.
in the hospital room and have just like that little bump in your day compared to terrible rest of everything else. And I wish we could talk for like 12 hours.
Yeah.
So I have so many other questions, but I really want to ask you kind of once you got home, and I know you had kids back home, so you had to jump right back in to life. How do you grieve something that you didn't see? And that, again, like I'm just kind of if you could walk us through like what a mother is grieving with a miscarriage, I think that would be just really eye opening.
Yeah, yeah. So a big part of what I grieve is all of the milestones that I'm missing with him and all of the future memories that I would have made with him. And because I have two living children, which of course I'm so grateful for. I know that there are people who, don't have any. I'm so grateful for that. But it's hard watching them go through milestones and do things and go through holidays that I know that like he'll never get to do those. And so, like,
Mm.
when we did Halloween, a few days after I delivered, I was like, he's never gonna trick or treat with them. And then when we had Christmas, I was like, there should be three of them, and there's only
Mm.
two. And so it's grieving all those future milestones, and even the milestones in pregnancy that I didn't get to because I lost him at 18 weeks. Then I lived for a really long time in this, like, I should be 20 weeks. I should be entering third trimester. I should be about to deliver. I feel like that was a really big point in healing for me when I stopped talking and like, I should be having a baby right now into like, I would have been. Just that little shift made a big difference for me.
Okay,
So
that's really good. So I should have, I would have. That's a good distinction. And in that moment where you're kind of having holidays and milestones and all this stuff, how can people on the outside support mothers going through those milestones in that you found were effective?
yeah, I would say acknowledge that it is hard. I think a lot of times people are afraid to bring up the miscarriage or the baby because they don't want to like make you sad. But you're not going to make anybody sad. Like they're already thinking about it. So bring it up. And if they don't want to talk about it or whatever, they'll just tell you that. But they probably appreciate it being brought up anyways. I know that like my mother-in-law made a post about all of her grandchildren. She loves them so much and had pictures. And of course, there's no pictures of my baby, none exist. But she mentioned him in the caption and said,
Mm.
and our little Wesley in heaven. And so just having those little acknowledgments, people texting me on Mother's Day saying, this must be hard for you. But I'm thinking of you. Lots of texts that say, I'm thinking of you, no pressure to respond. I'm just thinking of you. Those go so far because sometimes I don't have
Yeah.
the energy to respond to that. And I definitely didn't at the beginning, but they still meant a lot.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I know you mentioned you had 2 other kids and they're quite young. Were you able to kinda conceptualize to them what happened?
Yeah, with my 3-year-old for sure. When I delivered, they were like barely 3 and 17 months old. So the younger one has got no clue. He doesn't understand, but the 3-year-old totally does. She was actually at my appointment with me when I found out because I brought her to see the baby because she was excited and I was like, oh, the baby's really looking like a baby on the ultrasound now. It'll be so exciting for her. Um, and then I'm like finding out, and she didn't grasp what was happening, of course, while we were in there. But then I had to go home and sit down with my husband and tell her. And it's a 3-year-old doesn't understand death really, even of a person that they've like seen and talked to. It's a lot to understand. But it took lots of conversations. And she brings it up sometimes, even still she'll ask about it, and she's like, is Wesley coming to live with us? And I'm like, no, he died. And she's like, oh yeah, that's right, he died. And so she's very matter of fact about it now. But she's felt comfortable coming to me and saying things like, I've just been really frustrated because I miss our baby. Like she'll just
Oh,
say things like that.
wow.
Yeah, so it's hard to hear those things because I feel so guilty that I couldn't give her that baby she was so excited about. Um, but I feel like she has a pretty good grasp on it.
Yeah.
And we have like a very, very open communication about it.
Oh, that's so beautiful, and it's so amazing that you're able to have that conversation. I know a lot of people just don't talk about it, and, I'm so proud that you guys are doing that. I'm sure that's I can only imagine how beautiful of a bond that is. One kind of thing, with the misconceptions out there, what are you have this massive community on Instagram, and I'll let you talk all about mainstream miscarriage in just a minute. What are some of the common themes that you hear back from the women that you help serve on Instagram that they wish other people knew?
Yeah, one of the big things is don't start any sentences with at least. A lot of people, they think that it's helpful to try to kind of push you into a more positive mindset, make you feel better. So they'll say things like, "Oh, at least it was early," or "At least you're young, you can try again," or "At least you've got your other kids." But I think it's so important for people to remember that, like, we're grieving the loss of that baby. It's not just a shot at like a baby. It's that baby. That was a life that was lost. And so most people, they say, I do this little thing. I've done it a couple of times where people can like submit like confessions or opinions, and then we see like who agrees with it or not. And a lot of people say it makes them feel so much less alone because they see something and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not a monster for feeling that way. Like other people feel that way too." And one of the big things is that people say that people in their life don't understand really the weight of it because it's someone that only you kind of knew because you're the only one experiencing anything with them while you're growing them. But other people, they don't know until the baby arrives, really, that they're a person. So just kind of, yeah, understanding the weight of it. And then also understanding that miscarriage it's not just like a one time event. It's not just like a week where you bled and then you recovered. It's like, this is an ongoing thing, just like we talked about how you're mourning the loss of those future memories and those future milestones. And each Mother's Day or Father's Day might be hard. So just, yeah, to not forget people once you're past those
Oh,
few weeks.
that is so beautiful. And I am just so grateful for you for sharing and for just this community that you have on Instagram. So, do you mind? I wish, again, we could talk all day, but we're going to cut it here, unfortunately. Do you mind just sharing a little bit more about your page, who's a good fit for it, and where they can find you?
Yes. So I hope that the page is a good fit for anyone who's gone through any kind of pregnancy loss and those who are looking to support. I know that there's a good little portion of people in there who are just looking to support. They've not been through pregnancy loss, or they're done having kids, so they won't experience one, but they just want to support. So I hope that it's good for everybody. Um, and what was the other part?
Oh, it's on Instagram, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That's perfect. Well, I am so grateful for you for sharing that. Is there kind of any, if you could talk to a person, a mom who just miscarried and they are seeing black, what would you say? Like, if you could just like leave them with this final thing, what would you say to that mom?
I would just sit with them and say, "This is hard. This really sucks. I hate this. This is unfair." Validate all of those things. Um, then maybe after a little bit, I would tell them that it will get better, because it does get better. I never want to push anyone to that stage where they feel like they have to get better quickly. But it sucks, but it does get better.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And coming from somebody who's walked that road is probably a little more appropriate than somebody
Yeah.
who hasn't. Oh my gosh. Well, I am so grateful for you. So thank you so much for being here. I'll make sure everybody, if you don't know, join my email list. I'll make sure you've got all the links to be able to get in touch with Mainstream Miscarriage after this call. So thank you so much, Alexia. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. You guys, wow. Do you mind giving her a big thank you in the comments? I know this is hard stuff to come on and talk about, and she's a busy mom. So we are just so grateful for her. And in the midst of that, the song that I wanted to play for you guys tonight is Cold Dark Room. And I couldn't have asked for a better tee up because she kind of hit on the exact thing, whether it's miscarriage or really anything hard, any loss, the importance of just being with somebody and not trying to fix it and not trying to justify it away with that terrible phrase, at least, right? Hopefully we can all just remove that from our vocabulary forever. So this is Cold Dark Room. And I'm not sure if you haven't heard it before, in the comment section, I'm going to post a link and you can absolutely just go find all things Mickey Spear on it. But Cold Dark Room just hit over 9,000 views on Spotify, which was a huge Unbelievable blessing. I'm just so grateful, humbled. It's very difficult as an artist to even get past the 1,000 mark. The dreaded less than 1,000 is what we kind of always joke about in the musician community. So the fact that this song resonated with people and people added it to their playlist was so humbling. So here's just a little bit of Cold Dark Room. This is absolutely a song I hope you continue to add to your playlists, and just kind of it's my thesis in a song, and so I just really hope that it helps. I know you're seeing black and you don't know where to go. And the pain is seeping slowly into your bones. There's not a whole lot I can do, but I can sit with you in this cold, dark room. There are no magic words that can take away the hurt. The sun may be hiding and there's no silver lining. There's not a lot I can do, but I can sit with you in this cold, dark room. Yeah, I can sit with you in this cold, dark room. Thank you all so much for being here today, you guys. It is always such an honor. I just want to challenge you today to think who in your life might be going through a hard time. And if you can't think of anybody, get on Facebook. I'm sure you can find somebody, right? The more we can just reach out and just ask people how they are doing and not have assumptives or trying to fix it, but rather just like be there and let them know that we're thinking of them, and maybe do what she just told us and add in the no need to reply unless you want to. Wow, that is so powerful. And together, you guys, together, the more we do this, we are literally going to change the world and change how people help one another. And that is so powerful. So thank you all so much for being here. I will see you next week. We got so many great people coming up on this lineup. Please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and head on over to mickyspear.com where you can get on my email list. And if you want one of those all-weather welcome journals, again, my gift to you is that I am not making a dime off of it. It's $5.38 right now on Amazon Prime. Let me know, and I'll get you that link before the price goes up. So thank you for being a faithful follower. I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait to talk to you next week. Bye.